Public speaking. Public speaking is the greatest fear of mankind, and it is said that most people would prefer to be dead than even be asked to give a eulogy. Public speaking is now considered to be the most important skill across every facet of life, including every profession, public service, or any single career path one could take. It is considered now to be so important that many reports have been commissioned on not just public speaking, but the importance of communication itself. We know of multiple public figures that grace our television screens that have had enormous fears, anxiety and stresses relating to their ability to speak. The difference is they decided to be trained. One such person is a man called Warren Buffett. Now what makes him very interesting is that he's nearly 90 years of age, but yet at 14 years of age he knew he had difficulty communicating. He was fearful of answering his teachers in class. And he enrolled in a course back all those years ago and was so fearful he didn't even turn up for the course. But later on, in his early 20s, he realized he couldn't do business with his clients, and he attended and took time out to attend the Dale Carnegie School of Public Speaking. He has said that that was singularly the most important time and money that he has ever spent. Now, for a man over 7 decades that has actually invested trillions, and yes, I mean trillions, not just on his own behalf, but on the hundreds of thousands of clients he has had. That's a big statement. But I quote him, and he has said the following, and it's a direct quote. "You've got to be able to communicate in life. It's enormously important. Schools somewhat underemphasize that. You've got to be able to talk to people, get your ideas across. Otherwise, you're giving up your potential." So, what does it take to become a good public speaker? I today am going to give you a brief insight into the training that would be involved in becoming a good public speaker. Having a knowledge of the anatomy and the physiology of the respiratory center, the speech production centers of the brain, and the voice production centers of the body is very empowering and important. You need to know how you, as a person, are producing your own spoken voice, but your own signature voice, and how all those words that you want to get out seem to come out with such ease, fluidity, and yet in perfect synchronization. That is a very empowering journey. And immediately you will know that you're on a road where knowledge is very powerful. And having accepted that, you're going to know that with knowledge and training, you're going to confront your fears, embrace your fear, and control your fears. But importantly, you will be trained to hold on to some fear, because without fear, you would be a bad speaker, a bad performer, and you certainly don't want that for you or your audience. To confront your fears further, you would be trained how to get rid of the tension in the upper torso of the body, particularly up here, around the shoulders and here in the neck, where we tend to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. And then to further de-stress, you would be taught multiple breathing exercises, which are miraculously work pretty much instantaneously. And there are numerous amounts of breathing exercises to do to further shake off some of that fear and stress. I'll talk about one, diaphragmatic breathing, a very powerful breathing technique The diaphragm, an area here at the base of the lungs, largely unused indeed by most of the population, but used very skillfully by our athletes, our top athletes in the world, and our top public speakers. Yes, they bring it into play. And when they take in a deep breath, they intend to fill the lungs, but they're going to fill this space, the diaphragm. They can do that. Taking a big, deep breath and holding that breath, and then managing to exhale. Importantly, what does it do? Now you know it's going to slow your heart rate down, give you an immediate feeling of calm, and finally you're back in control of those thoughts. That is very, very empowering diaphragmatic breathing. Then it's very important, before you give a speech or a presentation, to put your body through some of all of these de-stressing techniques and to warm up that voice. Now I think it's very important to remember that you must be aware of where you're going to speak. You need to have walked the stage or the room or the office, wherever that is, so that everything is set up that you need as a speaker. Let that be that you know where there are steps, where there are cables, that you don't trip. Now you need adequate seating for your audience, you need good lighting, you need heating, you need a good microphone maybe you need a lectern and it has to be at an appropriate height. But you equally need to make sure, if you need a screen, PowerPoint, laptops, all of those things, don't leave them to chance. It's a further fear reducer. And if you are being introduced, make sure you speak to that introducer. Now, you need to know what he's going to say about you. It has to be true, it has to be relevant and pertinent, but importantly, make sure it's not any more than 2.5 minutes long. And they are all further fear reducers. Now that takes us into the world of how do we stand and what's the importance of stance and posture in delivering a good speech. Well, you would be thought to stand with your feet firmly on the ground, shoulder width apart, and with the visualization technique of envisaging roots sprouting from your feet into the ground like as if they were trees. Now you can stand in this position for quite a lengthy time. There's going to be no swaying or rocking, and possibly at this point, it's important not to have bulging pockets, keys hanging out of you, bracelets or things that are going to make noise and distract your audience. Very important. Now we're into this world of, what am I going to do with these hands? They're in the way. Can I get rid of them, put them behind my back, tie them down? But we're entering the world of body language. These hands are powerful messengers. So no, you don't want to get rid of them. Because what is body language? Now, body language is non-verbal communication. It is unconscious and conscious movements and gestures. And as we know from Albert Mehrabian, he discovered what's known as the 7-38-55 rule. 7% will be remembered by the words that you spoke. But 38% will be remembered as to how you said it, meaning the tone you used, the pitch you used, and the pace you spoke it. But 55% will come down to movements and gestures. Oh yes, the hands. How did you use them? And did you use them? Did you use them well? So yes, the reality is that 93% of our communication is non-verbal. That's an enormous amount. That means our bodies are doing the talking. Now, at this junction, it's important to be trained in how did and how do I come up with a speech? And that would be thought to you several ways, but one very important way is understanding and knowing Aristotle's 5 canons of rhetoric. The first canon is the invention phase of your speech. Now, this is where you decide your topic. The second canon is the arrangement phase. Now, this is where you decide and collate all your information. You're collating it from the best possible sources. You're using mind mapping. You're using brainstorming. Canon number 3, style. This is where you're drafting your speeches, multiple drafts possibly. But importantly now you're inserting humor. Now you're going to use humor effectively, if you can. Not every speech is good for humor. Not everybody is good at getting humor across. So recognize that. But importantly, you're also going to be injecting rhetorical devices. What are they? They are metaphors, alliterations, litotes, but you will be taught all those. A great speech to reference is, where every one of these are used very effectively, is Martin Luther King's speech, "I have a dream." And now you have canon 4. And this is memory. How are you going to remember this speech? Are you going to learn it by heart? Will you learn it by head? Will you tell a story? Maybe you'll use PowerPoint. Or, shucks, you might even use notes. The idea is that you won't be using notes. Canon number 5 is delivery, and this is where all of your skill sets comes into play. Finally, you will be able to deliver. And this takes us to another interesting phase, which is audience. Knowing your audience. It's vital to know your audience. And a further stage, which is connecting with your audience. That is more important, or as important at least. You must connect with your audience. And how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to deliver a passionate and interesting and a beautiful speech. And then you're going to be excited about that speech. So you're going to exude that excitement, and that excitement is palpable. You see, some of those ingredients are emotions, and emotions are transferable. But more importantly, you're going to have great eye contact. So you're going to water your audience with all that fantastic knowledge, just like as if they're plants. So that's where you're at, about your audience. You see, your audience, this isn't about you, the speaker. This is all about the audience. They've come to hear you because there's something in your background or your content that they want to know about. They've taken time out to listen to you. So it's important that you make that connection. There's no such thing as a bad audience. There's only an audience that failed to connect. Now we're into the fact that at the end of this road, you will in fact have been through further exercises where you will be aware of vocal variety. You will have had vocal exercises. Your phonetics will improve dramatically, but you will also have decluttered speech. You won't be using M's or ums or R's or rights, because that is, cluttered speech belong to nervous speakers. Now you're going to be speaking with ease, with fluidity, and with brevity. You're going to be conscious and be able to think ahead as to what you want to say. And it's going to come out much, much more easily because you're going to be properly trained. So ladies and gentlemen, I've just given you a brief insight into what it takes to become an amazing public speaker. For those of us that have taken the journey and participated in this amazing training, it is truly not just rewarding, but in fact, it is humbling. And I want to say that for all of the young people in the world today, it is a must. Thank you very much.